let us try to understand a new Python web framework, Django. And before that, let us recap yesterday's content, right? And yesterday we had a discussion on functions like default arguments, keyword arguments, partial functions, then what variable length argument functions, then variable length keyword argument functions.
Sound will come.
Then after that, what else?
Lambda function,
map,
filter
reduce
operation,
functions.
map operations, reduce functions.
Yes,
And
filters,
then finally we discussed about big data analysis.
data analytics,
Anonymous function.
anonymous function. Okay. So you will not forget this filter, map, and reduce, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And there in the reduce function, yesterday we wrote lambda a comma b, right? Actually,
Yes, ma'am.
it takes the first two arguments from the list for the first time, right? It will be 2 square and 4 square, right? So these two numbers will be taken first. Add the two numbers, and for the next iteration, the sum of A, B and the next number from the list will be passed. So initially, the first two elements of the list are passed as argument. That's why it is A comma B. Okay, fine. And today let us get into Django framework. Have you heard of this term, framework?
No, ma'am.
Have you heard of the term framework anywhere?
No.
So
No, ma'am.
normally we develop web applications, right? So when we develop web applications, we follow different architecture pattern, right? And in the earlier versions, the developer has to hard code, whether it is component, if he on a class, everything the developer has to do. Later, people started working on some predefined packages and libraries, okay, especially for developing web applications, right? So, if your platform provides more number of components and more number of libraries, then we call it as framework. And Django is one such framework which is open source, and it's a Python based open source web framework. And Python does not have Django alone. It do have many other web frameworks like Flask, TurboGears, number of what open source web frameworks are supported by Python, right? And among all, people say Django is the best because it is faster and it has got a number of components, and it can offer more security features to your application while communicating, and it has got a scalability. Even the number of users may increase, can balance well the loads, the request loads. Even you can scale your code, its speed will never get reduced, right? So it can include more users as well as more features. So because of such reasons, people prefer this Django web framework. And before getting into this Django framework, let us have a brief discussion on what is a web application, right? So have you heard the term HTTP? Hope you might have studied in your college. I don't know whether your students have this HTTP protocols and other steps.
Yes, ma'am, they have.
They have, okay, fine. For any web application, this HTTP protocol is mandatory. So this is the application layer protocol, and this protocol carries the request from client to the server, and it carries response from the server to the client, right? So what is this HTTP request and what is this HTTP response? What is your opinion on this? Looking at this diagram. What What is client?
Request is client request.
Client request.
The user request.
Can you give me an example for this client request, ma'am?
That is, I'm searching about any information in Google. For example, human respiratory system. I need some information. I'm giving request.
Okay. So you are opening the browser and you are typing something, and when you hit, a request will be generated, right? And that is your HTTP request.
Yes.
And what your HTTP request actually carries to the other end? Any guess?
Hypertext documents.
Data packets.
Human. What else? Ma'am, you told and you tried another answer, right? You tried to give another answer. No, what is that?
Data packets.
Data packets. We are talking about the application layer, ma'am. We are not talking about the
Tally,
below.
ma'am.
Sorry, sir.
Tally program.
Tally program.
Yes,
No,
tallying something.
no tally, sir.
Text.
Sabha, can you
Web
repeat your
pages.
question?
Sir,
Can you repeat your question?
what will be actually carried by the HTTP request from the client to the server?
Okay.
Yes, sir. So let us imagine this is your Gmail page, right? This is your Gmail page where you will be typing your username and you will be typing your password, and there will be a button, right? So you're typing your username here, you're typing your password here, and the moment you hit this button, immediately this HTTP request gets generated, right? And this request message has its own format, right? So it has got a start line, then it has got some header, and it has got some payload. Actually, the header, from the header, you can get informations like what type of protocol, what protocol it is, what is its version, and which page it is requesting at the server side. Hope you got it, right? Because, for example, when you are trying to hit this button, definitely it goes to the respective server, right? And in that server, there will be plenty of resources available, say X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, etc., etc. Lot of resources will be available there, right? And actually, which which resource is needed by this hit, that matters a lot, right? So your start line of your HTTP request message consists of the protocol and its version, and which resource it requests. Say, for example, if there in the server side there exists login.java file, there are plenty of Java files available, it is assumed, and this particular page wants to hit the login.java. So which resource is requested actually, and so such informations are carried by the HTTP request. Okay, fine. Then now, who carries your username and who carries your password? The same HTTP request carries. There is a payload part. That payload will actually carry your Gmail ID and your password. And while transferring, it has got a structure. It will be transferred as a name value pair, like username equal to sabha@gmail.com and password equal to 123. So it will be carried as a name value pair, right? And once it reaches the server, it searches for this login.java, because this login.java is actually a resource which resides at the server side. So your request will hit that login.java, and at the server side, that login.java gets executed. And we all know, to execute any program, inputs are required, and the inputs are extracted from the HTTP request payload. We have methods for that. So if you are writing servlets or JSP, then you'll be using like a request.get parameter of username, something like that, to get or to extract the username and to extract the password from the HTTP request payload. So that will be the input for your login.java. Your login.java receives that input, and definitely all the user details will be stored in the database, right? So your server, it is connected with a database here. So after getting the username and password, the login.java, that resource itself will have some business logic there to interact with the database. So immediately it establishes some connection with the database, and it executes the required queries, and it finds whether there exists such username and password. If there exists such username and password, then immediately this login.java servlet will generate a response. And that response is packed by the server. Again, that response will have its own format. So its first part will be a status line, and your status line consists of the protocol, say HTTP, and its version, say 1.1, and a 3-digit code, and its respective phrase, right? So if the request is successfully processed and if a response is generated at the server side, then automatically your HTTP response will have this information as the status line, which is part of your HTTP response message. And as usual, this too will have a payload where it sends some information to the client. So this information is received by the client, and it will be displayed in your browser as welcome Sabha, like that. So this is the basic idea behind a client-server communication, right? So the fundamental or the basics of communication between client and server through HTTP protocol is this, right? But nowadays, there are slightly changes in various architecture patterns. And one such example is Django framework, where it will not directly hit a Python file. Of course, it hits a Python file only, but it will not directly interact with the resources. We have some intermediate files called urls.py. So all your requests will hit the urls.py, and which means even the request generated is in the form of URL, right? So the URL file will be hit, and if there is a match between the requested URL and the existing URL in the urls.py, only then your Python framework will decide, right, whether this has to be executed or not. We'll look into that, okay? So any questions you have? Oh, no questions. Okay, then let me proceed. Okay, so your Django framework is all about MVT framework, stands for Model Weave Template. So whenever we design a web page, we do some segregation. Your content will be in the HTML. Your styles will be in a .css file, and your JavaScripts will be written in a JS file. Okay, why we do like this? For clarity, or we say modularity. Okay, so your code will be very clean, right? And anybody can understand that. The same way, when it comes to a web application, here too, people have brought different architecture pattern where you are separating your database related activities, you're separating your business logic, you're separating your views, right? So this is the idea behind this MVT. So frameworks like Struts, Spring, those framework uses MVC, Model Weave Controller. So always model is associated with database, right? And weave is associated with the page which are rendered at your end, right? And controller is the business logic. So this is what MVC. And here they have slightly modified it to MVT, where your model helps to handle database, and your weave is used to execute the business logic, right? Weave is to execute the business logic. At the same time, the page is also rendered, that also we call it as view, right? And of course, you can have a separate presentation layer, and that separate presentation layer is template. I'll demonstrate that. I'll show how a page is rendered with weave alone, and then we shall design a very simple application where your presentation is rendered through templates. Okay, and yes, this is the Django architecture. Okay, so user requests for a resource to the Django, right? So user will always send a request, and that request is first received by the Django. Then this Django works as a controller, right? Django works as a controller, and it checks for available resource in the URL. So for any Django project or for any Django app, this URL is very crucial, right? So your Django checks for available resource in the URL. So if the URL maps, then a weave is called. Only if the URL maps, a weave is called, and that weave interacts with the model and the template, where it interacts with the model to connect with your database. And anyway, even if it interacts with the database, and the results returned by your query or whatever it is finally rendered to a web page, and that is your template. Okay, so sometimes we directly hit a template, or sometimes it hits the model and then it comes to the template, and that depends on the application, right? And always Django responds back to the user and sends a template as a response. So this is very brief about this Django architecture, right? Okay, now let us directly go on to the hands-on. So it would be better if you take notes also, right? Because a lot of commands, lot of codes are there to execute, but they are very simple, right? Okay, so requirements. So what are all the requirements for Django? Python is required, then pip is required. Pip is used to install libraries or modules, right? Pip is required, and then a Django admin is required. So in order to install anything, you just type like this. Already I have installed, so you have to type pip install SQLite. So whatever you want to install, you can install like this, right? Okay. There are plenty of IDs available for executing this Python and Python web frameworks. We have Sublime and PyCharm is available. Then Visual Studio Code is available. So what I am using today is Visual Studio Code, right? So let me use this Visual Studio Code. Okay. So let us start executing step by step, right? Okay. So first, let me check whether Python is available. So this Python version, yes, Python 3.6 is available. Then let me check whether pip is available. Yes, pip 20.0 is available. And then let me check whether Django is available. In order to install Django, the command you have to use is pip install Django. That's it. It will take some time to install Django, right? So let me check Django hyphen admin hyphen version. Yes, Django 3.0 is available. Okay, fine. So now let us create a project first. See, in this context, project is different from app. project folder is different from an app folder, and where your project require multiple apps. So your project folder will be a separate one and your application folders will be a separate one. Application means your login module may be an application, your payment processing, your order processing. So each modules, people call it as apps here, right? So let us see one by one. First, let me type the command to create a project. Say Django -admin start project space say my app. This is my project name. Okay, Django -admin start project my app. So where this my app will be stored inside the DFT folder. Okay, fine. Now let us check whether there exists such folder. So I'm using both Visual Studio and this command prompt. Okay. So open file DFT. Yeah, here you can find this my app. Wait. Open folder DFT. Yes. So the my app folder is open here. I think the screen is not that much visible to you. Let me try to zoom it.
You can do control plus.
Is it visible, ma'am?
Yeah, it's visible, ma'am. Visible.
Okay. Then no
And
problem.
you can always in the command prompt also you can tell go to my app and then dir.
Okay. Right. So we just created a project and these are the folders and files generated for this. Okay. So you have a folder named my app here and another file manage.py. So let us open this manage.py. So this manage.py is responsible for running the server. Okay. Wait. Okay. So this is responsible for running the server. We are not getting into that file now. And you can find your project folder here. And when you open your project folder, you can find init.py. So whatever resources you want to initialize, you can do it here. And you have some ASGI and WSGI. These files are used for deployment purpose. And you have the settings.py. So whenever you add an application or whenever you try to have some security features or whatever you want, whenever you would like to have some MySQL as your backend, you can include all those informations in this settings.py. Here you can find it. You'll be having a base directory and there will be a secret key and it's asking whether you want to debug or not, allowed host. And whenever your Django framework generates the request and if the generated request is forwarded to some other host, then you can have that host IP address here, right? And if you are installing any other apps, you can have that apps in this list. And you have some security features in the name of middleware. And this is your root configure, right? myapp.url. So whenever you run your Django application, your project's URL page will be hit first. And there you have to state what is the URL pattern and what are all the other URLs included there, which means In addition to this project, in order to make your project complete, you need lot of apps. You have to generate those apps. And each and every app should have a separate URL. And you have to include those apps URL in your project folders URL. I'll show that URLs.py, right? And then you have a templates. You can, if you are using, if you are adding templates, even without template, you can develop a very simple application, right? But when you go for a bigger one, definitely you need templates, and you can have any name. You need not give the word templates alone to generate a folder, right? You can have any other name. So that name can be given here in DARs. Like that, so again, this is used for deployment, and you have a database which is a keyword, which is a dictionary type, and by default you can find SQLite 3. If you want to add MySQL or PostgreSQL, you can include those MySQL and PostgreSQL informations here. So it goes on, right? Okay, this is your settings.py. So this file is very important. And the most important is this URLs.py. So this is a default one, right? admin/admin.site.urls. See, why this admin, I'll tell you. Django offers a built-in admin page. And how many of you have seen PHP my admin page? Have you seen PHP my admin page? It's an user interface where you can
No, ma'am.
do a lot of query processing and other things, right? The same way Django framework also offers, but it is very beautiful when compared to this PHP and my admin. So I like this Django admin page because, you know, if you want to make some entries into the database, you will get a form there. The moment you create a table, to that table you will get a form there in the Django admin, and through that form you can feed data, which is not available in other admin pages. At the same time, if it is a PHP my admin page, you have to write a query, insert so and so into so and so values, like that you have to write. And Django offers a beautiful user interface to enter the inputs, and that inputs will be inserted into the database. Okay. So that is the beauty of Django admin page, right? Okay, fine. So this is your project. So my app is your project. And this URLs.py belongs to this project. At the same time, if you want to create n number of apps to make your project, you can create n number of apps, provided each app should have an URLs.py, and you have to include all those URLs.py in your project's URLs.py. Your project is my app. My app consists of an URLs.py. There, here you have to include. If I create a app, say calc, then I have to explicitly create URLs.py for that app, right? That app calc. Later, I must include the URLs.py which is available in the calc app into this URL file. So don't confuse between URLs. Your project will have URL, then your app will also have URLs. Actually, when you try to run your application, the first thing is your project's URL will be hit. Okay, your project folder's URLs.py will be hit. URLs.py. This will hit, and from here the control goes to the respective app's URLs.py. Say if calc is my app, the calc will also have an URL, right? It hits that URLs.py, and from this URLs.py, it gets the name of the view. It gets the name of the view, and from the view, you are redirecting your page to a template. Okay, I'll demonstrate those things. Okay, now let us create an app. Okay, so in order to create an app, you have to move to your project. So So this my app is not this project folder, this outer folder, which is your workspace area, right? It is not your this folder. If I use the command dir, here you can find you have your manage.py and you have your my app directory, right? Fine. So now let us create an app. So in order to before
Sabha,
that,
I have one doubt.
yes, sir.
So by giving the command django admin start project my app, it creates two directory, right? One is the project directory my app, and within that project directory, another subdirectory is subfolder is created in the same name my app. Is it correct?
Yes, sir. In the same name, yes, sir. Yes,
Oh,
sir.
okay. Any reason for that? Why they are choosing two same names for the folders?
No idea, sir.
Huh?
No idea, sir.
Oh, they are simply creating two folders on the same name. One is the
Yes.
folder for the project, entire project. Another one is the for the app, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you.
Not for the app. We call it as project. App is different here.
Okay. So still we are not creating any app, right?
Yes, yes.
Still we are creating only the project. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So now let us try to run this project and check. So to run, type Python manage.py run server. This is the command used to run the server, and it takes few seconds. Yes. So this is the host address 127.0.0 and the port number is 8000. Okay. So let us check. Okay, yes. So now your project is ready. This is the default Django page. And from here, you have a lot of hyperlinks, you have community links, you have tutorial links, you have your Django documentation. You can click them and you can navigate through all this. Okay, fine. And let us try to change all this through our code, right? Okay. Let me quit from the server now. Now let us create an app, right? So to create an app, the command used is Python manage.py start app. Let it be calc. Calc is the name of the app. Yes, it is created. Let us check. So see, you can find a calc directory here. And the moment you create a calc app, you are getting the default DB, SQLite.3, right? Earlier it was not there. At the same time, your manage.py is also there. Your project folder, my app is also there. Okay. Let us check here. See, here too you can find your my app is there, your calc is there. Look at the hierarchy, right? Hierarchy is same. And now when you expand this calc, here you can find migrations, init.py, admin.py, apps.py, models.py, tests, wheels, etc., etc. You can add any number of folders inside this app. You can add any number of files inside this app. And you can find one migration, that is when you create a database or when you are designing your database, for the first time you have designed and you have connected everything. Later, if you are altering your table structure or anything, you have to migrate. Only then the changes will be reflected in your project. So that's why this migration is required, right? And also, when you copy your project from one location to another location in order to update all the changes, this migration is required. And then you have init.py where you can initialize resources, and you have one admin.py. As of now, we are not going to write anything in admins.py, apps.py, we are not going to use, and this is the config file. and models. So this models is very, very important, and um, the applications which are created nowadays does not use the traditional DBMS. Instead, they go for ORM pattern where your records are treated as an objects, right? So you won't be writing the traditional query like select star from so and so, where you cannot find such queries. Instead, you just write the fields. Actually, they are describing the entire table as a class. The table name is the class name, and the fields which we use in the table are treated as members of the class. That is how tables are designed nowadays. And that's a different thing. We are not getting into that today, but this ORM kind of thing is very faster. It is very flexible, and it is faster, right? That's the thing. Then you have test.py. If you want to write any test cases for your application, you can have all your test cases here. Weaves.py. This is very, very important. So whatever functions you want to define, you have to put it in a weave. All your logics should be inside weave. From weave, it gets directed to a model or it gets directed to a template. That depends on your application. So your Django application cannot bypass this weaves. It should get into the weaves, and then from weaves, it has to take a different path, either models or weaves or templates through weaves. Fine. Okay. So what is missing here? I told you about an important file, and that is missing here. What is that?
Settings.
URLs.py.
No.
URLs.py.
Yes, sir. URLs.py. URLs.py is missing. So we can have that URLs.py. URLs.
It has to be created manually.
Yes, sir. Manually. By default, it won't offer. We have to create it manually.
Okay.
URLs.py. So this is your URLs.py. And in the URLs.py, you have to import the path, you have to import the weaves here. Let us do that. From Django dot URLs import path, then from all import weaves. Fine. And now we have to compose URL pattern here. URL patterns. So your URL pattern is actually a list where you are defining the path, comma, weaves. You are looking into a function. I'll tell you what it is. Equal to 4. Okay. So this is like you are defining a function here, and the name of the function is home, and this home is defined in weaves.py. So clear? We are defining a function home in weaves.py. Right. Okay. Let me save this. And now in weaves.py, I have to define a function home. Okay. So def home. So this receives the request. Receives request, and let us try to return a HTTP response. HTTP response saying Hello world. Okay. And now one thing is missing, that is you have to import HTTP response. So from Django HTTP import HTTP response.
கூப்பிடு பூஜா
Okay, fine.
வீடியோ ஓட்டுங்க கூப்பிடு
Now let us
சரியில்லை
check whether we are getting this hello world message. Okay. So to do that, you have to run the server. Python manage.py.
Ma'am, in the return statement, HTTP response spelling is wrong, ma'am.
Okay, madam. Thank you. Response. Page. Let us start the server. Yeah, I have done a mistake here. Can anyone say, I told you we should do that, but I haven't done that. What is that? Whenever we create an app, we should create URLs for that. Then you have to include that URLs, right? Where it should be included. Where it should be included. Hello. Where it should be included. 127 dot. Still we are getting this Django only. We are not getting hello world. Why? Where we have to include the urls.py of calcap.
It should be added in the urls.py in
Model.
the project. Yeah.
Project. Exactly, sir. Exactly. Here that should be included, right? So let us open the project, open the project's urls.py, and let us try to include the calc.urls here, right? So path comma include calc.urls, calc.urls, and here let us import path comma include. So I think now this works fine. Let us run this server. See, since I didn't include this calc.urls, I'm getting some error here, right?
You have to put comma.
Yes, sir. Comma here. Yes. Now the hello world is displayed. Okay. And this is very static. Let us try to change this to get a dynamic one. So in order to get a dynamic content, or let us try to redirect this to a HTML page. Actually, this is not a HTML page. So let us have some templates, and within that templates, let us design some HTML pages, and let us try to hit that HTML page. Wait, before that, let me show how to give a dynamic content, how to display a dynamic content. So let us open weeks.py and urls.pattern. We are hitting the home method, which is available in weeks.py, and at the same time, no, there is not mistake here. Let me create a template and demonstrate, okay? So in order to create a template, you should not create your template inside your project My App, or you should not create it inside the app calc. Your project, your app, and your template should be in the same hierarchy, okay? So let me create a folder. Templates. So yeah, it is here. It is empty now. You have a templates file, templates folder, and now let us create a HTML file inside this templates. Say home.html, home.html, and let us try to put the hello world. So to differentiate from the previous one, let me have some exclamatory mark. Okay. Now you have templates where you have a HTML page. Now you have to tell to your app that this should be rendered in a HTML page. I mean, your weave should target the template, which is your home.html, right? So we have to make a slight change in the weaves.py. So open weaves.py, instead of HTTP response, you try to render the file which is available in the template. You render the template. So let us use render of your request object, comma, your home.html. That's it. Already we have imported the render. Yes. Okay, fine. So now your calc URLs file always hit weaves.home, and inside weave and in the home method, you are trying to render a template, right? So at the beginning stage, my app's URL will be hit, and from there it is redirected to calc's URL, and from this calc URL it is redirected to calc's weaves page, and in weaves page you are trying to hit your template, right? So let us save it and then run the server and check. And whenever you try to whenever you try to develop application in the initial stage, you always get error in the urls.py only. Only when you practice, you'll be more comfortable in that. What is this error? Oh, yeah, I think I have to. It's asking to migrate. Let me execute that and check. Manage Python manage.py. Now let me open the browser and check. Oh, still some error there. Wait, let me find out what is the mistake. Yes, yes. I have created a template, but I have not intimated to my project that I have created a template and this is the name of the template which I am going to use in this project. That is the mistake I have done here. So I must make some alterations in the settings.py. Clear? So go to open your project and open this settings.py, and in this settings.py you have to set a few things here. One is your dir. You have to state that you have created a dir which is template. So first you give the base directory, and in the base directory you are you have added one more directory which is a template. Okay, so join base dir comma templates. Okay. OS.path.join base dir comma templates. Okay, fine. So now let me again run this server. Yeah, we got it. Hello world, right? Now let us try to dynamically change. I want hello Seba, hello Harriet. I want to get like that. So let us go to the
Saba, one doubt. Can you explain once again about that? How do you include the template? What is the purpose of os.path other things in the settings.py?
So actually, this is the entire project structure, sir.
Okay.
And we have a base directory structure here. That is your my app and other things. Even you can find that the base dir in your settings too. I'll show that.
So you are given in the
Here
template.
you have a base. Yes, you have a base directory, right?
Okay.
And this base directory will get the absolute path of all the files.
Okay.
Okay. And now, in order to maintain templates separately, I have created a folder in the name of templates.
Okay.
Now I have to tell my project there exists a folder templates where all the templates are available, so that the weaves can forward its hit to the template folder.
Yeah, can you show that once again, the template and the template directive or the template key in the settings.py? Come down in the settings.py. Yeah, you are included in the dirs, right?
Yes.
Oh, along with the base dir, you are joining the templates one more directory. Okay, okay.
Already we have added, but we are telling it to the project now only.
Okay.
No.
So that including the path, you are joining in the path along with the base directory. The one more directory is called the templates.
Templates, yes.
Okay, okay.
Okay. So now let us try to have some dynamic content. And in order to have this dynamic content, let us go to weaves.py, and here next to this home HTML, let me add a dictionary. Say the name and the value is Seba. Right. Fine. And then I have to tell about this dynamism to my home.html, and let me replace this word with some interpolation, and let me give the key here. That's it. Okay. So save all, and then you run the server. And let us refresh it. Yes, you got it. Hello, Seba. Now In the place Sabha, if I type Harriet, I'll get hello Harriet.
Where you have defined the name actually?
Sir, I have defined the name in the views.
Oh, in the view. Can you show one second? Yeah.
I'll show. In my app, there in the views.py, yeah, here I have stated, sir, there exists a key value pair, name is the key and value is Sabha. And if I change this to Harriet, I'll get hello Harriet.
Oh, it can be, it should be given as a dictionary, right?
Yes, dictionary.
Can I put it
So
as a
this is
variable
how-
outside? Can I put it as a variable outside and then that dictionary variable outside, and then can I use the dictionary variable there?
Of course, we'll try, sir. D equal to name, colon, Sabha.
All capital letters. You give capital letters.
Yes, sir.
You give capital letters or some other symbols, so that it will be different, right? No. Sabha in capital letter.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I have to put it instead of there, I can put D. Okay.
So let me save all. Yes.
Yeah.
It works fine.
Thank you. Good.
Great. So now let us directly go to design a calculator. Okay. And before that, you might have noticed in lot of web applications where your header, the footer, the sidebar, those things will be same, and only one region will be changing, which is a single page application style, right? Or in other words, when you navigate from one page to another page, certain things are common across the websites, so that you'll get a feel that you are sitting in the same page, right? But actually you are going to different pages. At the same time, certain contents are constantly maintained across. So such thing can also be done here. And to do so, we are using a special scriptlets, and that scriptlets is called Jinja in Python. People who have worked in JSP will be using some scriptlets, right? This open angle bracket, a percentage symbol, and for there you can have some declarations, you can have some Java statements, like that you will be using some scriptlets kind of thing. And in Django context, people call it as Jinja, right? Jinja. Okay, so let us use that. So let me move to this template folder and create another file, say base.html, and I would like to inherit this base.html in all the pages. So base.html, and in this base.html, I want to set the background color. Okay. So even if I want to set the background color, you have to start from doc type, HTML, head, body, etc., etc. There is a shortcut when we use this IDE. Press exclamatory mark and hit enter. When you do so, this default code will get generated, and here you can replace the title document with DFT. And in the body, here you have to place a scriptlet, right? And that scriptlet syntax is curly braces %. Okay, and here you are stating this is going to be a block of content. This is going to be a block of content, and the block's end is this. This is end block. So initially, for the first time, when you practice this, you won't get this violet color, you won't get this blue color, right? Radiant green. You'll get it in white because Jinja is not enabled. So in such case, in order to enable this Jinja, you can click this extension. You can click this extension So once you click this extension here, you can type Jinja. Already I have done that, so it is listed here. You can type Jinja and you can hit enter, so that your Jinja template language will be included in your project, and it will enable you to include Jinja scripts. Okay, and let me change the background color. Say body BG color equal to say pink. You can do beautiful designs. For time being, I am stopping with this. So now I have a base.html, and hereafter, whatever pages I try to maintain as a templates will have this base HTML, will include this base HTML, and this is something like inheritance. Okay. Now let us try to include this in the home.html and test. You have home.html here. Let us try to include the base.html. So you have to use a Jinja script here, and inside this you say extends keyword, then base.html. So this should be in single quotes. Okay, so it's obvious, whatever you have written in base.html, that is inherited here. So your title will hold DFT, and the background color of your page will be pink. And then to include the block, so say block content, this is your block content, and then end block. End block is a single end block. Now let us try to display this and check whether we get the pink color or not. Save everything. Run the server. Yes, we got it, right? The title becomes DFT and the background color becomes pink. Now let us try to design a form with 2 text box and 1 button. Okay, so let us design in this home page itself, home.html itself. Okay. Say first number, input, type equal to text, and let value equal to say what number? Number. Let me use a break tag. You can copy this code, paste it here. So this is second number, and let this be num2. And now place a button. So how will you place a button? Input type equal to what? Nobody is interacting with me today except sir. Someone tell me what should I give here? What should be the value for the type attribute to get a button? Hello?
Submit.
Why submit? Why submit? Why not button? Button will just place a button, right? And when you click the button, you will be allowed to invoke certain scripts. You will not be permitted to generate a HTTP request. So only if the value of the type attribute this submit, it allows you to generate a HTTP request. So submit, then value, which is the caption. With the caption we add here. I need a form, right? I missed that. Form, some action is required. So we'll fill it later. Or we can give it as add directly. Okay. Now the form is ready. Why a red mark? Yes. It closes. Okay. Let us see whether the form is displayed or not. So I have saved everything. Let us run this over. And one thing I have noticed is this is not asynchronous. I have made some syntax error. That's why I'm getting this. Let me check what it is.
Name.
Double quotes is missing. Double quotes. Okay, fine. Let me refresh. Any error message? Great. Okay, run server. Let me check whether I have saved it. File, save. Whether I have done any other mistakes. Form action, open, close, it is proper. Input type equal to text.
Sabha, it is value or ID?
Or name. It
Yes,
is value or
name,
name, ma'am.
Name.
Tag.
Thank
That's
you,
what.
sir.
Name attribute.
Yes, thank you, sir.
That's.
And yeah, we got it, right? Now when I click the button, another template should be displayed and that template should hold the result. Okay, let us try to do that. So inside template, let me create another file, say result.html, and let this result.html includes these things. So result.html. Let me remove this and just check whether the page is getting displayed or not. Okay. And now we have created a result.html, right? At the same time, should I tell to someone that when I hit the button, the result.html should be displayed? Definitely I have to do that, right? Where I have to do it? Where I have to do it?
Perhaps in views?
Exactly, sir. Exactly, in views. So go to views and before getting into views, where should I mention about this at the outset? Who will forward it to views? Who will forward the control to views?
Obviously, you have to set it in the template as well as in settings.py.
No, sir. Why should I go to settings again? After all,
already the template is there. Already the template is there. So
Oh,
in URLs,
yes, exactly.
URLs.
And the URL
URL.
is the state.
Yes.
Hello, here in base.py, there is a function add, you hit that. That information I have to maintain in this URL.
URL.
So let us give it here. Say path, add, let it be add, comma, weeds.add, comma, the name is add. Comma is correct. Okay. Yeah, fine. Now, what will be the attribute, what will be the value for the attribute action in the form in home.html? It is add, right? Which is a method which is available in base.py. Okay. Okay, now let us define a method add in base.py. So def add request, and let us try to render the template first. Return render of request, comma, what is the name of the template? It is result.html. Fine. Okay, that's it. So let us save this, run the server. Okay. Let me type some values and click add. We are getting the result page. The template is ready. Now I have to add the two numbers and return the sum to this template result.html. So we have to write the implementation here. Say val1 equal to your request object dot your get method, and you are trying to extracting the value from the name num1, right? And we know whatever we type that is received by the server side as a string, so it should be converted to an int. So let us convert it. Let me copy this line. Let me put it here. Okay. Val2 and this is num2. Val2 and this is num2. And now just add res equal to val1 plus val2. Okay. So now the sum is ready. The sum is available with res. Now this res should be sent to the template result.html. Okay. How to do that? Result.html, comma, a dictionary. So the key is result colon, and it is available.
RES.
And we have to do one another touch in which page our result is ready now. This result should appear in the template result.html. So here what we have to do, use an interpolation to display result. That's it. We are done. So this is not asynchronous. See, every time whenever I make change, automatically the results are not rendered in the web page, right? I have to refresh it. Yeah, we got the answer. 5, and got the result as 10. If you want to make it more readable, you can have some H1 tags and other things so that your page looks more beautiful. Right? And that's all for today. Any queries or any doubts you have? Be careful while composing the urls.py, and you should be very clear that the project's URL file is hit first, and from the project's URL, the control is taken to the respective app's URL. From the respective app's URL, it is forwarded to weave and weaves.py, and from weaves.py, invoke the associated methods and thereby the templates. Okay. So this is a very simple application. Hope you understood whatever I demonstrated. And someone asked my email ID. You can make a note, or I'll type it in the chat.
Sabha, there is no chat. You can type it in the notepad.
Okay, sir. So you can post questions related to Python, related to Django. So you can make a note of this. Right. So any queries from your end?
Ma'am, we couldn't
No
see
queries.
the page
Didn't
actually.
see
Oh,
your.
See the page.
Yeah, you didn't share your, yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let me share it. Yeah. sebaanthony97@gmail.com. So any queries from your end? Any doubts you have? So I guess.
Ma'am, excuse me, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Tell me.
What's the difference between NetBeans and Django, ma'am? NetBeans also we can design that whatever we did the HTML like that we can do now, ma'am. NetBeans also.
Actually, NetBeans was designed for Java first, and later people started including PHP, Android, C, C++. That is an IDE, ma'am. It's an IDE where it supports different kinds of frameworks. You can have Java frameworks, you can have PHPs, you can have struts, strings. Even you can develop C or C++ applications in NetBeans, but especially it is for J2E. But Django, it's only Python, right? So, anything else? So, if not, we shall wind up the session, and I would like to express my sincere thanks to my professor. Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I had a very interactive session with DFT faculty members, and thanks for giving me this opportunity to interact with brilliant teachers of DFT group, and thanks to all the participants. Thank you all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sabha.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah,
Thank you,
Thank you
ma'am.
so much, ma'am.
Very
Sabha,
much,
for
ma'am.
your wonderful lectures and methodical lectures and simple way of explaining everything. Really, it is wonderful, and in future also, we request your cooperation and participation in our all programs, in all our endeavors for the development of skills for our students as well as for our teachers. Thank you, Sabha, for your full efforts. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir, but all the credit goes to you.
No, thank you, sir. It is no, you have spent nearly 7 days, the hard work. Thank you, really. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. Yeah,
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you, sir. Thank
Thank
you,
you, ma'am.
ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.